Hi, my name's Alex. I'm an addict. Hiya. Thank you, Robin, for inviting me to share, and thank you for reminding me that I was sharing. I actually forgot that I was supposed to be here, but I left work a couple hours early because I had something to do. I thought, you know what, let me just get a meeting in. So I'm glad that I managed to turn up, albeit a couple minutes late. It's funny because the last time I came here, there was about maybe 10 people here. So I thought it'd be nice and peaceful, but there's an awful lot of you today. But yeah, so my experience of NA, my very, very first experience of NA, I was about 20 years old. I was living in Oxford. I'd called a drugs counsellor that I was given at school as a condition of me being at school, and then I'd not been for a couple of years, and I called him up and I knew that he went to these things called meetings, and I didn't really know how they worked, but I knew that you went to them if you needed help to get off drugs. So I came to my first NA meeting, quite scared, got a lift off my mum, and I read that Why Are We Here reading, and there's a bit in it where it says about through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we actually we're creating our own problems. And I can remember reading this bit of paper, and I felt reassured because it was explaining to me how I felt about myself, but I hadn't read about myself anywhere else before, and I hadn't met anyone that used drugs in the way that I did in my group of friends or anything like that. And that made me feel really, really comfortable and really, really safe. And if you are new in NA or back from a relapse or you're struggling, welcome. You are in a safe place, and from my personal experience for this time around in recovery, so far I've managed to stay clean for just over 3.5 years. And what's been really, really nice about that process is the desire to use left quite early on this time. And I say this time because the first time I got clean was after that first meeting when I was 20 years old. I got about 18 months clean, but it was more abstinence rather than recovery. I didn't really get the God thing. Felt quite uncomfortable about that. Felt like I was missing out quite a lot. And I hadn't really come to a place of acceptance, which for me, step one, admitting that you're powerless over mind or mood altering substances takes a lot of acceptance and a lot of surrender. Because I had no problem with putting stuff down for a little bit, but the challenge was after a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it might be, that little nagging voice, just have one spliff or just have a beer because those aren't your drugs of choice, or just go out for a little bit. And slowly but surely that nagging little voice would latch hold, and then within a few months I'd be back right where I started again, thinking, how did I get here? My use of drugs at start was very, very enjoyable, but for me personally, I had about a year, maybe 2 years where it was really, really good fun, and then it started to go downhill very, very quickly, and I wanted to stop very, very quickly, which is when I realised that I couldn't. In fact, that's a lie. I never actually wanted to stop, and this is why I struggled with powerlessness. I didn't want to stop, but I didn't want the consequences that I got from using the way that I did. I always wanted to find a way whereby if I could just stop at a certain amount, or if I could just not switch off when everyone else switched off, or just one day a week, or all of these conditional forms of using that I tried to fool myself with, and it would always end up back in that same place, which is powerlessness. Says quite an interesting thing in that reading, and I find this bit the most challenging part. It said we had to admit that we were powerless not only over drugs but of our addiction as well. And when I came back in the rooms this time around, I tried to make a real effort to come in and do various things. And I'd always sit around in my first early days or so, and I'd hear people sharing about like obsessing over plants, or eating too much biscuits, or trying to cut out sugar. And I'd always think to myself, like, I'm trying to put down Class A drugs, and you're talking about biscuits. What's wrong with you? But I totally get it now, because it's like whack-a-mole. You put one thing down, and then something else pops up. And over the period of the last 3.5 years, it's gone from trainers, clothes, eating out, sex, porn, cars, watches, playing video games, travelling, pretty much anything that I can find external from myself to change the way that I feel. I will use that until I am in a place of pain. And then I'll wonder why I'm in a place of pain, and then I'll realise why I'm in a place of pain. So I'll put one thing down, and then I'll start on something completely different. And I just won't see the connection, I won't see the pattern. And without jumping too far forwards, because I'm going to try and remain on step one as much as possible, being within that form of powerlessness or obsession and compulsion really got me in a lot of trouble when I was around 9 months clean. I remember I picked up this keyring, and and I was flat broke, and I just moved house, and I couldn't afford it, and I couldn't afford to live, and my mate had to put me up. So I remember this was Christmas 3 years ago now, sleeping on my pal's sofa, feeling lower than I did when I first come in, and I picked this up clean, without a substance, off the back of my behaviours. And that's been one constant that I've found challenging throughout my time in recovery, is recognising when something that I like or something that I enjoy, I'm overusing it, or using it in a way which is damaging to myself or others around me. A big part of my story within my time in NA has been relapse. So I came in, got about 18 months clean, and then went back out, and I thought to myself, I will have 0.5 gram and a small bottle of JD. And from the moment that I did those two things, that set something off which didn't stop for about 6 years. Although I would get periods of abstinence, and I tried everything. I tried coming to NA but taking drugs, but just taking less drugs. I tried not using at all but not going to NA, which was more painful than anything else, because the obsession and compulsion of the head having constant never-ending thoughts about stuff was so challenging. I don't know how anyone does it. And it was only until after I tried absolutely everything else that I felt myself spiritually broken and able to listen to the program. A friend of mine shares about how if you had someone that was dying with cancer and you said do A, B, C and D, they'd do A, B, C and D if they knew that it would make them healthy. Whereas we're told do A, B, C and D And at least for me, I went, all right, cool, I'll do A a little bit. I'm definitely not touching B. C, yeah, all right, cool, that's okay. And D when I feel like it. And it was only when I noticed from you guys and certain people who are still in this room and still clean, that the people that do the suggested things generally, well, they stay clean, and the people that don't do them tend to have more of a chance of relapsing, which showed me it's just cause and effect. You either accept that you do all of it and you stay clean and healthy, or you don't, and you run the risk of relapse. And that doesn't mean to say that life's not challenging from time to time. Life can be very challenging, but it just allows us to be better equipped with it. I've got something going on in my life at the moment, which is, well, it's a good thing, but it's kind of daunting. About 2 years ago, I'd always said to myself that when I came in recovery this time around, I said, okay, I'm going to sort myself out, I'm going to set up my own business, and I'm going to get my ex-girlfriend back. Those were the two things that I wanted, yeah? Those were the two things that I wanted. So I worked really hard and I did both of those things. And after about a year of solidly putting myself in an uncomfortable situation with this woman, I got into a relationship with her and I saved up some money and I set up my business. And both of them two things were as a complete and utter fucking failure, if I'm brutally honest. The relationship was horrible because of all of the damage that had been created. And the business that I'd decided to create failed. And I hung on to both of these things for a period of about 6 months. This was last year. And because I knew that these are the two things that I'd wanted and that I'd spent years trying to get, and now I've got them, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. It didn't match the image that I created in my head that these two things were supposed to be like. So I let go of both of those things in January of this year. And that has to have been one of the scariest things that I've done in recovery, but also one of the most liberating, because it was that same old thing of going, all right, cool, I don't know best. And that's what recovery has taught me. No matter how something might look in my head, no matter how attractive it might look in my head, that does not necessarily mean that that's the best thing for me, which is why I have to run my thinking past a sponsor, why I have to have a support network. And it is okay to go, do you know what, you were wrong, actually. So I let both of those things go. And that was really quite testing in terms of my faith. Anyways, so since I've done that, life has really flourished. I've met a new girl, we're moving in together, which is really nice. I set up a new business with some different people, which is going superbly. And me and this woman have agreed to move in together. And do you know what? Like, I feel scared because she's met me at a really good, happy time in my life where everything has been going well, and I feel really good. And it's scary because I just want to do that justice and continue in the vein that I have been. And it's scary because it's unknown, because it feels right and it feels safe, whereas all of the other things or grand dreams that I had in my head before, they didn't feel right. I thought that they were the right thing to do, but they didn't feel right. And with this thing, it feels right, and it's a little bit daunting to have that. But I have faith in the program, and I have faith in NA that no matter what happens with it, as good as this feels right now, that I'll be safe within my recovery, and I will remain clean. I haven't got anything else to say on the subject of step one, but as I said at the start of my share, if you are new around, if you are struggling, if you're back from a relapse, or if you've been here a while and are maybe falling out of love with the program, please stay. It's a lovely place that can change your life. Thank you.
Thank you.